I was so afraid I might say something.
The movie opens in Paris, our assassin, infamously known as the Paris Killer. Renowned for his flawless track record, he's never made a single mistake. For his latest assignment, he rents an office directly facing a hotel, offering the perfect vantage point to surveil the area and monitor his potential target. The killer lives by a rigid code, so precise and disciplined that he never once strays outside the boundaries of the law. He knows that even the slightest misstep could expose his identity and shatter his legendary reputation. Meticulously careful, the killer leaves behind no fingerprints or DNA, fully aware that one minor error could be his downfall. After 5 days of silent surveillance with no progress, he reached out to his handler, prepared to abort the mission. But the handler urged him to hold on just a little longer. Reluctantly, he agreed to extend his surveillance for 2 more days. That night, while silently preparing his weapons, he was startled by the sound of approaching footsteps. Instantly on high alert, he tensed only to discover it was a courier. Without a word, the messenger dropped an envelope on the floor and swiftly disappeared. Later, in the stillness of night, he was jolted awake and immediately noticed movement in a top-floor room. His target had finally arrived. Without hesitation, he readied his rifle and took position, lining up the perfect shot. With surgical precision, he calculated every detail: the angle, wind speed, and every variable that could influence the bullet's trajectory. Everything appeared perfectly aligned for a flawless kill. But the moment he pulled the trigger, the shot missed, hitting the woman beside the target instead. Instantly aware that the situation had unraveled, he moved quickly, erasing all traces of his presence before making a swift exit. Without looking back, he headed straight to the airport, leaving behind a trail of chaos that couldn't be undone. In a rush to leave the office building, he meticulously wiped away any evidence that could tie him to the scene. As he left Paris behind, the killer contacted his handler to report the mission's failure. The handler warned him of possible consequences, but the killer remained calm and detached. With chilling confidence, he assured them he would handle it. But just as he was regaining control, he spotted a suspicious figure lurking nearby, instantly putting him back on edge. His instincts warned him that the figure could be a mercenary sent to take him out. The looming threat instantly put him on high alert, ready to react to whatever might come next. The killer checked into a hotel near the airport, preparing for a possible confrontation with the mysterious stalker. To secure the room, he rigged a simple but effective alarm system. A glass balanced on the doorknob, and a metal plate at the base of the door ready to signal even the slightest movement. Knife in hand, he waited in tense silence, every muscle taut with anticipation. But by midnight, the truth became clear: the stranger was just an innocent traveler. The next morning, the killer checked out and boarded a flight to a safe house in the Dominican Republic. However, upon arrival, a chill crept over him. Scattered cigarette butts and unfamiliar footprints made one thing certain: someone had been there before him. The moment the killer sensed a break-in, he armed himself and slipped inside, moving like a shadow. The house was in chaos: furniture overturned, shattered dishes scattered across the floor, and streaks of blood smeared on the walls. A chilling sense of dread settled over him. Then his phone rang, and the news hit like a dagger. His girlfriend was in the hospital. Rushing to the hospital, he was met by Marcus, her relative, who delivered the devastating truth. 2 strangers had come looking for him, but found her instead. They tortured her mercilessly, trying to extract information she refused to give. Even under excruciating pain, she never broke. And in one final act of defiance, she seized a brief opening, twisting free just enough to drive a blade into one of her attackers' legs, forcing them to retreat. After speaking with his girlfriend and piecing together the horrific events, the killer made sure she received the best medical care, quietly slipping the doctors a generous sum to guarantee it. Returning to his house, he unearthed a hidden chest buried beneath the floorboards. Inside were forged documents, stacks of cash, and a deadly arsenal of weapons. The image of her suffering burned into his memory, igniting a relentless hunger for vengeance. His first lead was clear. The criminals had arrived in a green taxi. Clinging tightly to that clue, he launched his pursuit. It didn't take long before he tracked the vehicle to a transportation company known for its fleet of green cabs. With quiet patience and icy precision, he zeroed in on the driver who had transported them. Each move he made was deliberate, relentless, his eyes missing nothing as he inched closer to his quarry. Under the cover of night, the killer infiltrated the administrative building, sifting through records until he uncovered the taxi driver's identity, Leo Rodriguez. With a description in hand, he began his hunt, shadowing Leo's every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the time came, he slipped into Leo's taxi undetected and lay in wait. The moment Leo slid into the driver's seat, he felt the unmistakable press of cold steel against his temple. Paralyzed by fear, Leo had no choice but to obey. Under the assassin's cold, penetrating stare, he stammered out everything he knew about the man and woman he had driven the day before. His hands shook on the steering wheel as the horrifying truth sank in: this wasn't just any man. This was a predator, ruthless and unstoppable, who would go to any length to extract the answers he wanted. Gripped by fear, the driver followed every order, his hands trembling as he admitted he had picked up the two individuals from the airport. That was all the killer needed. Without a moment's pause, he eliminated the driver, leaving no witnesses behind, and disappeared into the night. His next stop, New Orleans. Once there, he rented a white truck and headed straight to one of his concealed safe houses. Inside, he accessed a secured storage unit, revealing an arsenal of fake license plates, firearms, and ammunition. Everything was meticulously arranged, waiting for this moment. With cold precision, he began preparing for what came next. At dawn, he visited a hardware store, purchasing a pneumatic nail gun, a trash can, and other essential tools. With everything in place, he drove downtown toward Dolores's building. The lax security played right into his hands. Just one camera monitored the entrance, making it easy for him to slip in unnoticed. Disguised as a doorman, he blended effortlessly into the surroundings, waiting patiently for the courier to arrive. The moment the courier stepped inside, he made his move, timing it perfectly to slip through the closing door without being seen. Once inside, he stayed alert and composed, biding his time for the perfect moment to strike. Then, with swift precision, he drew his gun and aimed it at the secretary, his cold gaze leaving no room for defiance. Frozen in fear, she had no choice but to comply. The moment the courier was gone, the killer moved swiftly, slipping into the office of Lawyer Hodge, his handler. Without hesitation, he ordered Hage and his assistant to be restrained, then methodically smashed every computer and tablet in sight, erasing all traces of data. Turning his focus to Hage, he demanded the names of his clients. But the handler stood firm, refusing to give up a single name. Instead, he met the killer's stare with a calm, knowing look, and issued a chilling reminder his mistake was beyond forgiveness, and the consequences were already set in motion. No one would offer him absolution, he warned. In a world that would never forget, confession was the only path left, his final shot at redemption. Without hesitation, the killer raised the nail gun and fired, driving a nail deep into Hage's chest. His voice was cold, his demand unwavering. He wanted a name. Hage had only minutes to respond, but death came quicker than words, claiming him in silence. Watching it unfold, Dolores knew there was no way out. She met the killer's gaze with quiet acceptance. Her only plea, a simple one: make it quick, make it painless. If nothing else, she hoped her death would secure the life insurance she had arranged for her children, a final act of protection in a fate she could no longer outrun. The killer didn't hesitate. He granted the secretary's request, not out of mercy, but because she held the key to what he needed. She alone knew the client's identity, the one responsible for his girlfriend's suffering. Her life was a price he was willing to pay to reach his goal. With the job complete, the killer and the secretary slipped out of the office building and disappeared into the night. Their destination, her home. The next stage of his carefully orchestrated plan was about to begin. After disposing of the lawyer's body in a nearby dumpster, he returned to find Dolores frantically struggling to escape. But with her hands bound tight, there was no way out. She was still very much under his control. Resigned to her fate, she gave in, revealing the key details that pointed to a client in Chicago. Once the killer had what he came for, he didn't hesitate. With a swift, practiced motion, he snapped her neck and sent her body tumbling down the stairs, meticulously staging it to look like a tragic accident. His work was flawless, no loose ends, no second chances. The killer meticulously wiped away every trace, eliminating all evidence including the lawyer's body until nothing remained. A few days later, he set his sights on Florida, determined to hunt down his first target, a man known as Brute. Upon scouting Brute's house, he analyzed every detail with precision. The man wasn't alone, he had guests, and more importantly, a vicious guard dog that would need to be dealt with. Wasting no time, the killer made a quick stop at a nearby grocery store, picking up ground beef and sleeping pills. With his plan set in motion, he returned to Brute's house, prepared to launch the next phase of his mission. That evening, Brute met up with a crew of thieves at a casino where they reveled in a night of gambling, eager to burn through some of their stolen cash. Hours later, he broke away from the group and headed home alone, just the opportunity the killer had been waiting for. Moving with cold precision, he first took care of the guard dog, tossing it ground beef laced with sleeping pills. Within moments, the once aggressive animal fell silent, sinking into a deep, drug-induced sleep. With the immediate threat neutralized, the killer slipped inside the building, each step deliberate and soundless. He knew exactly where Brute was inside the bathroom. The hunt was almost over. The moment the killer stepped inside, Brute lunged at him, mistaking him for a daring thief. A brutal struggle erupted, both men fighting with raw, unrelenting force. But the killer had no intention of lingering. This was only the first step in his revenge. As he slipped out of the house, a new threat emerged. The dog had awakened, its furious growls promising to rip apart the intruder who had dared trespass. Barely dodging the beast, the killer acted without hesitation. He threw a Molotov cocktail through the window, watching as flames erupted, devouring every trace of his presence. His work here was complete. With his next target awaiting in New York, he moved quickly, buying a standard ticket, washing away any evidence of blood in a cold shower, and preparing for the next phase of his relentless pursuit. The killer rented an ordinary car, blending effortlessly into the city's landscape as he headed toward the home of the specialist, the woman who had been involved in the attack on his girlfriend. Armed with forged documents and a false identity, he had no clue what she looked like. So, he waited. His patience was rewarded when a blonde woman appeared. Zeroing in on her, he followed at a careful distance, keeping close enough until they reached a traffic light. It was the perfect moment. His hand hovered near his weapon, ready to strike. But something made him hesitate. Instead of pulling the trigger, he chose a different approach. He let her go, following her instead to a restaurant where he would meet her face to face. The specialist's blood ran cold as she recognized the man before her, the relentless killer seeking vengeance for the crime she had once defended. Fear tightened around her throat, but she tried to mask it, scrambling for an excuse. She spoke of orders she couldn't refuse, of circumstances beyond her control. But the killer remained unmoved. Mercy wasn't in his nature, and forgiveness was out of the question. Though he didn't fully trust her, he played the part, accepting her invitation for a drink before casually suggesting a walk. A cold shiver ran through her. In that moment, she knew her time was running out. With death closing in, every breath, every step, every heartbeat felt agonizingly precious. She held on to one final hope, that the killer would choose a place of beauty for her death, allowing her a sliver of dignity in her tragic end. In her desperation, she made one last attempt to deceive him, trying to lure him into a trap. But he was quicker. Before she could make a move, a single gunshot shattered the silence, ending her life in an instant. With her death, the killer uncovered the true mastermind, Mr. Claiborne, a billionaire living behind the walls of a heavily fortified estate in Chicago. Without wasting a moment, he headed straight for the city, carefully tracking his target's movements. Upon infiltrating the underground parking lot, he encountered an electronic lock barring his way. It was just another hurdle, another layer of security to be overcome. For the killer, it was only the beginning. He quickly obtained a duplicate keycard and secured a membership at the billionaire's gym, slipping effortlessly into the daily routine of Claiborne's inner circle. To ensure a clean operation, he also procured a brand new firearm, one untraceable, never before used, after discreetly transferring funds into a separate account. By morning, the package arrived, delivering the keycard he needed. Wasting no time, the killer set his plan into motion. He infiltrated the security guard's locker at the gym, swiping the card to guarantee effortless access. While the others were absorbed in their workouts, he quietly slipped away, heading back to Claiborne's estate to carry out the next phase of his plan. He had already secured a duplicate keycard and a gym membership, allowing him to move unnoticed within the billionaire's circle. To cover his tracks, he also acquired a brand new, unregistered firearm, discreetly transferring funds into a separate account to ensure no traceable connections. By morning, the keycard arrived. Without hesitation, he set his plan into motion. Slipping into the security guard's locker at the gym, he swiped the card, granting himself unfettered access. As the other members focused on their workouts, he quietly slipped away, making his way back to Claiborne's estate to carry out the next stage of his mission. When the killer finally confronted the billionaire and demanded answers, the truth took an unexpected turn. The billionaire confessed he had no direct involvement in the events that had unfolded. He had been hired simply to eliminate a rival businessman, a job he accepted without hesitation, unaware of the far-reaching consequences it would trigger. When the sniper failed to take out the target, the lawyer had insisted on additional payment to cover up all traces of the operation. As the killer listened, it became clear the man before him was not the mastermind he had been hunting. There was no dishonesty in his words, no hidden motive, just a wealthy man ensnared in a game he thought he could control. Realizing that this wasn't the person truly responsible for his girlfriend's suffering, the killer made his decision. He would let the billionaire live. His vengeance was far from over, and the true mastermind remained at large. Before leaving, the killer issued a final warning to Claiborne. If he ever attempts to track him down or seek revenge, there would be no mercy next time. With that, he vanishes from Chicago, returning to his safe house to erase any remaining traces of his mission. In the closing scene, his girlfriend is discharged from the hospital, and the two escape to a serene beach, finally finding a moment of peace after the chaos. As the waves roll in and the sun sets,